Welcome back to another explainer. Man, I am so pumped for this one. Today, we're tearing into the geopolitical landscape, the deep lore, and honestly, the absolutely wild magic mechanics of Hunter Chadwick's fantasy universe in The Force of Magic. If you're into dissecting how oppressive empires hold on to their power, or how magical alchemy can just completely rewrite human biology, you are in the perfect place. We're going to break down the continent of Cairn, starting from the massive macro-level stakes of a conquering empire, right down to the micro-level of individual, highly volatile magic users. So let's just dive right in.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with number 1, the Dominion's Iron Grip. Then 2, the Guild and the Elixir. 3, Trace, Strength and Survival. 4, Perrin, the Ghostly Escape. And finally, 5, Marta and the Prophecy.
Section 1. The Dominion's Iron Grip.
To really wrap our heads around the magic in this world, we kind of have to understand the geopolitical reality it exists in first. So our core antagonistic force here is the Dominion. And listen, this isn't your standard disorganized ragtag army. No, they are a conquering empire defined by unrelenting progress and just ruthless, methodical military expansion across the entire continent of Cairn. They don't just defeat their enemies, they absorb them. But standard military tactics? That's not what makes them truly terrifying. It's how they deploy magic as a literal weapon of mass destruction.
Look at the fall of Cirta, for example. This was one of the last free towns to the east. Picture this. Under just a sliver of moonlight, the Dominion rolls out these strange catapults. But they're not firing rocks. They're lobbing barrels of this foul-smelling liquid, followed immediately by a volley of fire arrows. And when that alchemical fire strikes, it literally melts the stone walls like magma. It's this blinding, raging light that just collapses the city's defenses in minutes. And the survivors? Immediately enslaved. This brutal ruthlessness, that's the baseline of our story here.
Section 2. The Guild and the Elixir. So, you're probably wondering, who is actually creating these terrifying weapons? Well, let's shift our focus to the shadowy architects behind all this Dominion power. Meet the Guild of the Helm. They're this tight-knit group of ruthless magic users and alchemists operating out of a massive fortress called Darkholm Keep. And they're protected by an elite squad of enforcers known as the Dark Brotherhood. Now, the mastermind here is the Guild's chief alchemist, this tall, terrifying guy named Carvin. But Carvin's primary mission isn't actually just building better siege engines. The crucial thing driving all of this is what's known as the Overlord's secret mandate. It's a super tightly held secret that the founder of the Dominion, the Overlord himself, is dying from an incurable illness. So Carvin has been handed this completely impossible scientific pursuit, unlock the secret to eternal life. And how exactly does he go about this? Through highly lethal alchemical experiments on prisoners of war, using a ridiculously volatile formula he calls the Elixir of Life. But here's the thing. Carvin's alchemy is far from an exact science. It is an unsolved, highly lethal gamble. For the vast majority of these poor test subjects, the elixir just results in horrible death and disfigurement. Out of countless, literally countless test subjects, we only know of 4 positive reactions. You've got Tantem, who actually managed to escape, Brant, a Brotherhood enforcer who developed indestructible armor-like skin, and our 2 protagonists, Trace and Perrin. That's it. 4 people. It is incredibly rare. So let's look at how this elixir actually rewrites human biology, starting with subject number 3.
Section 3. Strength and Survival.
Before all the magic, Trace was literally just a farmer. He was forcibly drafted into the Dominion's military service. Now, desperate to get back home to his mother, he volunteers for a quote-unquote special project with the Guild, thinking it's going to get him an early release. But Carvin totally betrays him. After Trace drinks this glowing liquid fire elixir, Carvin realizes just how powerful he's become, immediately drugs him, and chains him to a wall in a pitch-black dungeon for months, to use as a human lab rat. Just tragic.
So how did that elixir rebuild his biology? Well, Trace's adaptations are incredibly physical. He gets superhuman strength. I mean, he literally knocks a heavy wooden door right off its hinges and effortlessly bends an iron bar. He also gets rapidly accelerated healing. We're talking cuts knitting themselves back together right in front of your eyes. He is crazy fast, and he doesn't even feel the cold like a normal human anymore. And why this matters is because this new biology lets him survive things that absolutely should kill him instantly. Like, he survives a massive plunging fall from the very top of Darkholm Keep and just casually pops his dislocated shoulder back into place against a tree. Later on, he single-handedly slaughters an entire pack of attacking wolves because his reflexes are just that superhuman. It is very hyper-aggressive, very grounded magic.
Section 4.
Perrin, the ghostly escape.
But remember, the elixir is completely unpredictable. Which leads us to our second case study, Perrin. Let's trace her trajectory, because it is just heartbreaking. She is only 14 years old. She barely survives that horrific fall of Serta we talked about earlier, only to watch her father get killed and be ripped away from her mom and sister. She gets thrown into a metal cage cart, beaten and enslaved. She winds up working in the kitchens at Darkholm Keep until Carven spots her, drags her into his lab, straps her to a chair, and forces the elixir down her throat. The sheer trauma this kid endures is just unimaginable before the magic even hits her system.
But that trauma, it deeply informs how the magic reacts inside her. She doesn't turn into a super soldier like Trace did. Instead, she becomes completely ethereal. Let's break down the mechanics of what they call ghosting. Step 1. An intense panic response triggers total intangibility. When she wakes up strapped to that chair, her absolute terror causes her to physically fade, to the point where Carven's hand passes right through her head. Step 2. She sinks uncontrollably through the solid stone floors. And Step 3, to re-solidify, she has to focus her pure willpower toward a visual destination or a sound. It is wildly uncontrolled at first. Actually, during her escape, she grabs Trace, ghosts them both through a wall into the open sky, panics when she realizes how high up they are, and accidentally drops him to his apparent death. Thankfully, Trace's healing factor saves him, while Perrin figures out she can literally float through the night sky like a cloud, eventually willing herself down to solid ground.
When we place them side by side, the stark duality of Carven's elixir becomes incredibly clear. You have Trace, physical, aggressive, grounded, healing immediately. And then you have Perrin, ethereal, defensive, airborne, phasing uncontrollably based entirely on a fight-or-flight response. They consumed the exact same magical formula, but their essences, their bodies, interpreted it in completely opposite ways. It really proves that the Guild's so-called science is completely unpredictable. They have no idea what they're actually doing.
Section 5. Marda and the Prophecy. So if it's not pure science, what is really guiding this magic? Let's zoom back out to the macro stakes of this universe. After surviving that wolf pack, Trace and Perrin stumble across a small cabin deep in the woods. And that's where they meet Marda. She's this ancient, grandmotherly figure with wild bluish-silver hair, and she uses magic. But not that destructive, alchemical fire the Dominion uses. She just uses this soft, blue-white magical fire to light her home. But her true significance is her background. Marda reveals she is actually a former member of the Guild. And here's the absolute kicker. The Guild actually predates the Dominion. They used to serve magic itself, not the geopolitical ambitions of men, right up until Carven took over and corrupted their purpose.
Which brings us to a massive analytical question we really need to ponder. Are Carven's brutal scientific experiments actually being manipulated by a much older, sentient magic? Marda tells Perrin that it wasn't just blind luck that brought them to her cabin. She says magic is weaving its own story, quietly moving the right pieces onto the stage at the proper time. Carven thinks he's the one in total control, playing the master scientist, but the magic itself might actually be using his elixir to build the very weapons that will eventually destroy him.
And that builds perfectly to this final, incredible thought from Marda, looking right at 14-year-old Perrin. You, child, are the one who will end the Dominion's reign once and for all. I mean, that gives you chills, doesn't it? It leaves us with such a provocative question. How is a young, deeply traumatized girl, who can barely even control her ability to phase through walls, going to topple an entire ruthless empire? I don't know about you, but that makes me absolutely desperate to see where this story goes next. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the magic around you.